Welcome into episode 458 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, before we get into today's episode, because day one of NHL free agency is winding down here as we record at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night, I'm going to try to just go through the Bruins signings just to get it out of the way, and then we'll go from there. So it started this morning around 11:30 or so, where they traded for Victor Arvidsson from the Edmonton Oilers, who has 1 year left on his contract at a $4 million cap hit. Edmonton did not retain any of that cap hit. The Bruins sent to Edmonton, I want to say it was a 2027 fifth-round draft pick, and that was the first move of the day. Then we move along to after 12 o'clock, and the Bruins signed Tanner Jeannot to a 5-year contract with a cap hit of $3.4 million. They re-signed, former Bruin Sean Kuraly to a 2-year contract with a cap hit of $1.85 million. Kuraly has obviously been with the Columbus Blue Jackets for the last 3 or 4 seasons, I believe. They also signed Michael Eyssimont to a 2-year contract with a cap hit of $1.45 million. They signed Alex Steeves. He's 25 years old, to a 1-year contract with an $850,000 cap hit. And I'm going to need some help with this one. Is it Matej Blumel? Is that how you say it?
Sounds right to me.
All right. We'll go with that. Matej Blumel, who's 25 years old, very prolific AHL scorer, 1-year deal, $875,000 of a cap hit. And they also signed Jordan Harris, depth defenseman, to a 1-year deal worth $825,000 as well. He's from Haverhill, spent time with the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, former Northeastern captain, I believe. So
spent time in Montreal as well. He was originally a Montreal 3rd-round pick. Played his first 2+ NHL seasons there, and then he was traded for Patrick Laine. That was a pretty big trade. And then things just did not work for him in Columbus, and they didn't even issue him a qualifying offer, which is why he was a free agent.
So that's the list. I don't believe I forgot anything, and I have my thoughts. I know you guys have your thoughts. Let's go right to the two of you. I want to get your pulse.
Yeah, so for me, the Bruins got slightly better. The problem is they needed to get a lot better before they're going to be competitive, before we're going to be talking about a playoff team. We can run through this roster on paper. We can put together line charts. It doesn't look like a playoff team. Maybe if a bunch of things break right, if Jeremy Swayman has a big bounce back, if Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm being healthy really improves your blue line, which it should, if Morgan Geekie has the season he had last year, if he does that again, if Elias Lindholm's better in year 2, if Casey Middlestad with a fresh start, clean slate, a new place, actually gets back to being a 60-point player. If all these things go right, okay, maybe we're talking about a team pushing for the playoffs, maybe even making the playoffs. Add in, a kid or two stepping up and running with a role. But it's a lot to ask for. That's a lot that has to go right.
Yeah, that's a lot of ifs. That's an if everyone plays better than they did last year.
Yeah, they didn't. And the offseason is not over, but it certainly seems like the overwhelming majority of their team building is now done. They did not address the single biggest need on the roster, which was adding a legitimate top 6 scorer. We can get into why, we can get into how thin the market was for those kind of players, but just factual statement. If this team was going to take a jump forward, you need to add that. And they didn't. I'm sorry, but 32-year-old Victor Arvidsson coming off a 27-point season, a serious back injury the year before, he's not that. Yes, at one point in his career, Victor Arvidsson was. And maybe he can be better than he was last year. But he's not he's not the caliber of player we were talking about them needing to add.
No, I think we should get to why first, right? And then we can talk about what the lineup might look like. We could talk about what their projection next year might look like in terms of, are they even close to a playoff team? But I think why they weren't able to make these any big top 6 signings is important to get to first. So last episode we talked about Besser and Ehlers really being the only 2 options that were out there. And Besser decides to sign back with Vancouver. So he doesn't leave. This is another guy who stays put where he was. And we think that was probably who the Bruins were most interested in. And so Besser's gone. Ehlers, Scott, do you think that they were really, truly interested in Ehlers?
Well, clearly not. As we record here at 8:15 Tuesday night, Nick Ehlers is still available. He didn't sign today. So clearly they weren't interested. The Bruins did their entire offseason and Nick Ehlers wasn't a part of it. So
yeah.
I'll say this. Either they weren't interested or he wasn't interested. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
That could be a possibility as well. Maybe they reached out, they tried to touch base, and they heard, sorry, Don, Nick already has a list of teams in mind, and you're not on it.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Frank Saravalli said that he had heard that Ehlers is yearning for a warm weather market with a less intense media market that he dealt with in Winnipeg. I don't think Boston checks either of those boxes.
Right.
No.
So there you go. Like, they weren't going to be able to get him, so they went ahead with whatever this plan was. I don't know if it was B, C, D, but it was not plan A. I promise you that. But
no,
that's what they ended up doing.
Yeah, but they didn't have a whole lot of choice, right? I think that's important to point out right from the beginning is like, if Ehlers didn't want to come here, if Besser signed back with his team, the best they could do was not going to be good enough to reach, a significantly better spot than they were at the end of the season.
Patrick Cain re-signed right after our last episode, like we predicted.
Yeah, and so it was, he never even made it to the market. They signed him before the noon free agency start today. So a lot of people never even made it to market. We talked about Marner was a sign and trade with Toronto to Vegas before. So all of the big names that we had talked about leading up to this in our very long off season since the Bruins had been done, things just kept going away. And now this is where they are. And I don't know what you guys thought when just before the noon beginning of free agency, they signed Victor Arvidsson. And you're like, okay, well, where does he fit? Because he actually ends up being the biggest piece that you get. And he wasn't a free agent signing. So, and he's only on a 1-year deal when you get him. So this is a guy that is not a long-term piece. We're talking about best case scenario. They go after one of these guys, top 6 guys like Ehlers or Besser, who wasn't any of our first choices, but that's who was left at, the beginning of the day today, and said they need a long-term top 6 guy. They do not get it.
So I just want to mention this right now, because I don't think I mentioned it when I was listing off all the signings today, but right now they have about $2 million in cap space remaining. So when it comes to Nikolai Ehlers, who is not a fit for Boston anyway, for his own personal preference, we believe, outside of Nikolai Ehlers, unless he signs back in Winnipeg, which all signs are pointing to him not, I don't think there's one major high-end UFA heading into the summer that signed anywhere else. I think all the UFAs that signed elsewhere, most of them were, more depth signings for their respective teams. I mean, there was a couple, but for the most part, a lot of players stayed put, significant players.
I mean, Marner, obviously, but again, that ended up being a sign and trade.
Yeah.
Technically, if you want to put it like he did sign with Toronto and then as knowing that it was going to be part of a trade, but like he never even made it to a place where you were legally allowed to offer him anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other one would be Vladislav Gavrikov, went from Kings to the Rangers. And even that, it's like Vladislav Gavrikov was only a top free agent because this was such an exceptionally he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like in a normal free agent year he would have been like the 8th guy, and he was like the 3rd guy.
Well, and the Rangers also they traded, I believe, or they're working on a trade with Keandre Miller to Carolina. I don't know if that's gone through yet, but I mean here, like, okay, here's the list of top 50 free agents heading into the summer. Mitch Marner, yes, he signed in Toronto technically, but yes, he went to Vegas. Okay, Sam Bennett stayed in Florida. Brock Besser stayed in Vancouver. Ekblad stayed in Florida. Tavares stayed in Toronto. Duchesne stayed in Dallas. Marchand stayed in Florida. Ehlers, question mark. And just, down the line you go. Nelson stayed in Colorado. Patrick Cain stayed in Detroit. Claude Giroux staying in Ottawa. So I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, I think Brent Burns is Brent Burns still out there technically? I mean, he's not going to Boston, but I mean, he might still need a destination at 40 years old. But in any event, that's
retiring?
I don't know. He might be. But while you're looking that up, Scott, you guys mentioned that this is a result of the salary cap increasing. I want to say 9 million this summer. So a lot of these players, their teams, their their prior teams, they had the money to retain them, and so they did. So yeah, the UFA market turned out being thin. The trade market, it comes and goes, right?
Well, so it's not done. It's not done. And I think the problem is we talked about how the Bruins have only $2 million of cap space left, but their only real hope of adding a top 6 guy is to go after some of the guys we talked about in trades, right? Like that's the only thing left.
Yeah, and they're not doing that, not this summer, unless something falls into their lap. Like,
yeah,
that they filled their team, they filled their roster, they used their cap space. Maybe there's one more move. Maybe you still see Korpisalo get traded. That would free up like another $2 million. So like maybe there's a way you end up signing a $3.5 million player, but like they're not making a big trade. They're not adding a $7, $8, $9 million player. Like that's gone. That window closed. This more or less is going to be their team. The other way you could have, you're right. They could have tried to find a trade partner and tried to find a player that way. That would have required trading away from the future, trading some of these picks that they've accumulated, or, a couple of these prospects they've started to pile up. And they didn't. And like, quite frankly, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with, you need prospects, draft capital, assets. Like, those are good things to hang on to. I've said all along, like, I think I'm going to be more. I think I have a different expectation than a lot of people where, like, I've said all along, this is going to be 2 or 3 years. Never once have I thought they were getting back to legit playoff team. Like, forget Stanley Cup contender, but even like team that could win a round. I never thought that was going to be this year. Clearly, with this roster, I definitely don't think it's going to be. But they're still trying to sell it as like they're going for it this year, and they think they're going to be much better, which I get why they say that, but I'm like, how can you look at this roster and really think?
But Scott, like, I could understand them saying that before today shook out, right? And I understand maybe this is just a line that they're feeding the fans, but like, there was hope pre 2 days ago. I'll say, like, post draft, pre everyone ending up where they ended up. I believed that they could be a playoff team. Today, I don't sit here and think that's what they are. There still could be moves made, but with what they have now, my 2 questions for you are, do you think this roster is better than last year post trade deadline? I'll do that one first. Are they better than they were post?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are, because post trade deadline, they also, I mean, even if they didn't make moves today, they didn't have McAvoy or Lindholm after the deadline last year. So right then and there, you're better.
I don't even mean.
So just the roster in general?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, because the market wasn't great. The UFA market wasn't great. Okay. The Bruins, they could only play so many cards. I don't even fault them for some of these signings. Some of these signings, some of these prolific AHL scorers, I understand the Bruins might think that they could be productive NHL players now before they cost much in a few years. Like they're rolling the dice on a few players, and I don't even question some of the like the Arvidsson trade, the Jeannot signing. Like I don't even, if it was just those, I'd say okay, like they're trying to get tougher to play against. They're trying to build an identity. Even if they wanted to sign Sean Corrali, that's fine. But what I don't get is they have so many bottom six players right now. And like why, if you were gonna go out and sign Sean Corrali in free agency, why re-sign Johnny Beecher? Right. So like these are the questions I have regarding this team, because right now you have Marat Husnudinov, Fraser Minton, Matt Patra, Tanner Jeannot, Sean Corrali, Mark Kaslick, that's 6. Mikey Esamont, that's 7. Johnny Beecher is 8. Fabian Lysell is another option. He's 9. I mean, Georgi Merkulov, if you want to count him, that's like 10. Especially when you had guys like Riley Duran or John Farinacci, who could have been those extra fourth line guys. They just signed so many. They signed a couple of extra players that do the same thing that I don't understand.
I mean, Don Sweeney seems to think this Mate Blumel and Alex Steves can push for an NHL. Like those were 2 of the top scorers in the AHL last season. Blumel led the AHL in goals.
So then add those.
Steves was tied for 2nd. And he said, like, hey, if those guys are going to end up scoring in the NHL, we want it to be with us. Personally, I don't think they're going to, but like those are other guys now who get a shot. So, but you're right. Like these are all bottom 6 shots. Like none of these guys should be on a second line. Again, with the possible exception of Arvidsson, like he has to be on the second line right now by default. And you're hoping for a pretty significant bounce back from him to like actually fit there. I mean, your second line, as you line it up right now, would be Casey Middlestat centering Pavel Zacha and Victor Arvidsson. And like you can sit here and try to talk yourself into a way that works, but that's going to be one of the weaker second lines in the NHL. Like that is not a good second line.
But even with the signings they had, like I still like why do you guys why re-sign Johnny Beecher? They let Jacob Lauko walk, so they weren't afraid to let some people walk. They let Oliver Wahlstrom walk, who was obviously down in Providence last year. I mean, they re-signed Husnudinov, which Husnudinov is one of those players where it's like, yeah, re-sign him. Yet he's somebody who could be something potentially. Same thing with these AHL signings that they just brought in, right? I don't even like. I just the redundancy. Like, why bring in Sean Corrali if you have Johnny Beecher, who you want him to be someday? But then just get rid of Beecher and just bring Corrali. But I don't understand why they have so many options down there.
I mean, I guess it doesn't really that part of it doesn't really bother me, because it's like, yeah, you're gonna end up waiving a bunch of these guys after training camp, and the ones who clear will go to Providence, and the ones who don't, good luck to them with their new team. So, I mean, Johnny Beecher, like if he doesn't make the team, there's no cap hit against you. Like I'm not too worried about that. On like, fine.
So you think they would send him to Providence?
Spots.
You think he could get sent to Providence? Then is what you're saying, or waived? Like that's what you're saying?
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Then if that's the case, then like sure. So basically, they're just making all these guys try out for jobs. Then essentially,
yeah, they want competition. Unfortunately, it's competition for 4th and I guess 3rd line jobs. And what they need is competition for top 6 jobs. They don't have enough guys who can do those jobs. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what do you even think is the competition for that second line hole? Like, do you like, because we're putting Arvidsson there, and I've had people message me and tweet at me today, Victor Arvidsson is not a second line guy. That's just not where he is anymore. And then I'm thinking like, all right, well, and I'm trying to like come up with a line chart of what I think is the best case, like the best combination of what they could do. And I'm thinking to myself, like, who is the competition for that spot? Is it Fabian Lysell? Is he somebody that could challenge for that spot? Because to be honest with you, if they signed a big name in free agency, he's not there. But maybe because of the situation that we're looking at, maybe he does genuinely have a chance to win that spot. I don't know. It's a question, a thought that popped into my mind today. could one of these younger guys that the Bruins have brought in challenge for a second line role? Like, is this really the time for one of the younger guys to end up there? Maybe it's Matt Patra, right? Maybe it's Fabian Lysell. Maybe it's somebody that we're not even thinking of, one of these younger guys in the system that has a chance now because there's not an obvious fit there.
It's a good question, Bridget, and you would think that competition would be up for grabs, but when you bring in somebody like Victor Arvidsson, who has a $4 million cap hit, well, he's not going to go any lower than the third line, right? So maybe Arvidsson does play third line, and maybe Lysell does win second line right wing, or Matt Patra, but it's not going to be both of them, right? Like to me, I think I don't know. I think it's probably Lysell fighting for a job against Patra again, which is internal competition is not a bad thing, but I don't see. But the problem is ultimately they entered the offseason without a top six winger, and as we sit here today, they still don't have it. Right? Somebody's going to be punching up essentially, and it's at the end of the day, I think the Bruins just were so broken last year, and they fell so far. Yes, the market wasn't great, but I think they looked around and said, you know what? I just don't think that a Band-Aid like Brock Besser and Nikolai Ehlers is what we need. I think we need to get back to basics and put together a roster that is going to work their ass off every single night and every single shift. And for the record, despite the lack of talent that I think this Bruins team has in key places, I don't think there's a shortage of heart and competitiveness with this group. I think they're going to bring it every night. So I think they're going to lose a lot of games, but I don't think it's going to be because of a lack of effort. So when Don Sweeney says we wanted to get more competitive, I do think that they will be more competitive. I do think there'll be a tougher out. I don't know if there'll be any less outs, but I think there'll be a tougher out. So I just think the Bruins are looking at it and saying, we want to reestablish being a very difficult, physical, defensively minded team to play against. We want to be structured, and we're going to infiltrate some cheaper, higher end skill through the draft over the next couple of years. James Hagens is an example. Will Moore is another example. Maybe he's somebody that they're eyeing, in years down the line. Maybe like a Will Zellers. Like there are players in the Bruins system that they're saying maybe the higher end skill will come in our entry level contracts over the next couple of years, and we'll surround them with professionals that can be good examples and also, have their back on the ice while showing them the right way. And to Scott's point earlier in the podcast, I think that in doing so, they are expecting to have at least a year or two setback. But I think setbacks can happen while still building a good, culture. And if they happen to find their way into a wild card spot next year or the year after because of good habits and good karma from working hard, and people play to their pay grade or above, then that's great. But I think the Bruins right now are exercising patience. And I'm actually kind of surprised because we know their ownership group wants to go back into the playoffs, and Sweeney can give us lip service about how he thinks that they're going to get back to the playoffs, and that's their goal. But I don't think they're expecting it behind closed doors. But I do think they're expecting to reestablish being a hard team to play against and a blue collar nature. And that's their focus. I think they're trying to rebuild from the ground up, but it does come at the expense, like we said, of like Pasternak and McAvoy's best years. And that's something to be worried about as well.
Yeah. I mean, but like they thought they were doing that last year too. Like Nikita Zadorov was supposed to help with that, and Max Jones was supposed to help with that. And, Mark Kaslik, who they brought in, was going to help with that and did when he was in the lineup. But they still stunk.
Oh yeah.
I don't necessarily think last season fell apart because they didn't have enough heart or character guys, or they just ultimately weren't good enough. Like some of their bigger signings didn't work out. Some guys got hurt. Swayman wasn't nearly good enough. Last season fell apart in large part because of what their top guys did or didn't do. The guys near the top of the lineup. It didn't fall apart because their fourth line wasn't tough enough. So I guess it's like, all right, fine, you can want to build those things, but ultimately it still just comes back to talent. I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks brought in a bunch of character guys around Connor Bedard. And where did it get them? Talent-wise, it was Connor Bedard and a bunch of bums. Like, ultimately, you still need the talent. You don't get... Yes, character is important. You need to have it. Culture, all that, work ethic. Absolutely. It means jack squat if you don't have the talent. Maybe it means guys have a little more fun when they show up at the rink each day. But, like, it doesn't get you winning games. And, like, now the Blackhawks are already onto, like, their next iteration of retooling and rebuilding because they couldn't figure out the talent around Bedard. Like, by the time like James Hagens is like hitting his stride as an NHLer, all these guys like they just brought in are going to be gone. Like, you're going to be turning it over to a new culture anyway. So I don't think it was the right approach for this year. Like, even with my expectation that this was going to take 2 or 3 years, what I really wanted to see this summer was add 2 core pieces. One of them through the draft with your top 10 pick, which I think they did because I think James Hagens is going to be that. I wanted them to add another core piece to grow with this group going forward, whether that was in trade, whether they thought it was going to be Ehlers or Besser, whether Ekblad got to free agency and maybe you did that. But something else where you were like, okay, this is a guy who's going to be a piece of what we're building moving forward. They didn't do that. They drafted Hagens. Yes, I think he's eventually going to be that. They did not add anyone else who fits that into that category.
Yeah, but I hear you, Scott, and I agree with you completely. I like skill, the lack of skill, the lack of talent was the most pressing need. It's what I wanted to see accomplished. But at the end of the day, there was no skill to be had. That everybody else re-signed. And you can talk about potential trades. Maybe they tried. Maybe they just didn't come to fruition. Or maybe teams weren't offering up players that were good enough for what you're talking about. Like, so if you're Don Sweeney, and I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying, if you're him today and there's no talent to be acquired, are you going to sit in your thumbs, or are you going to try to at least solve the blue collar part of it? And I hear what you're saying. They tried it last year with Mac Jones. They whiffed. They tried, like, I do think Mark Haslick was a player that worked out for them despite his concussion issues. I don't think Nikita Zadorov had as bad of a season as people say. I do think he helped make him harder to play against in certain areas. I think Victor Arvidsson and Tanner Jeannot, I think they're going to be tougher guys to play against, like than Trent Frederick taking, nights off every week. But, I hear you, Scott. I don't disagree. My question is, when that talent isn't there to be acquired in a given window of the summer, in a specific offseason, what are they supposed to do? And I'm saying that while acknowledging, I think they made a couple of unnecessary signings. Like, I don't think they need to have 10 third, fourth liners right now. Now, I know they're going to fight for spots in the fall, but I think they went a little extreme with some of these Moneyball signings. But by and large, if the talent's not there to acquire it, what are they supposed to do today? Nothing. I mean, sure, maybe. I don't know.
I want to ask this, and I don't even ask this to be negative, but it's something that popped into my head today. And I think generally we all feel the same way, that this was not great, and that this roster as it's constructed probably isn't a playoff roster. But that then leads us to, how bad is it? And do you think we're talking about the same thing as we did, the last month of this season, which is how high of a draft pick they could get? Do you think we're talking about, hey, maybe they get Gavin McKenna in the draft lottery? Do you think we're sitting here, they're a bottom 5 team again?
I think it's possible that I don't think they're finishing 32nd. Okay. I think too much went wrong for them last year, starting from the summertime, with the Swayman negotiations, to the Montgomery firing, to the underperformance of everybody, and the Hampus Lindholm injury, and the trade deadline where you sold a bunch of pieces. Everything that could have gone wrong for the Bruins last year went wrong. if they get a lot of ifs here, okay? If Swayman's better, if Lindholm can get right back to form, which is a big question mark because he's missed so much time, and can they effectively address the power play? Can they fix the power play and special teams? If they can do those things, then I think that their ceiling, if they do if all those things happen and they can implement a defensively sound structure and be a tough out every single night and players meet or exceed their expectations, if everything goes right for this team, I think there's a chance they could maybe contend for a wild card spot late into the season. That's if everything goes right. If things go bad, I think they could very well be between 3rd and 7th to last in the league. I do.
And so, but here's the question, right? Like that's all we're talking about when you're going through that stuff, talking about the beginning of the season. The Bruins had a chance to contend for a wild card spot this year, but in March they chose to sell because it was clear that it wasn't going to be a actual Stanley Cup contender. So what I'm thinking is, yeah, maybe all of that stuff goes right. They're still questionable and they go back to selling at the deadline. I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but like they go back to being the seller team because they don't think they're going to make a deep run. And then we're talking about this again. Like we're talking about bottom 5. We're talking about that's where my brain goes.
And that's the thing for me is like, yes, like you asked earlier, is this better than their roster post deadline? Yes. But I don't think it's better than the roster pre-deadline.
No.
And that team was struggling to hang in the playoff race. So sitting here now, I have to say, like, it's not a playoff team, which puts them as one of the 16 worst. So them finishing as one of the 10 worst is not out of the question at all. And like then from there, yeah, it only takes a couple other things to go wrong to be in the bottom 5. So would I pick them to finish bottom 5 right now? No. It would be somewhere a little higher up than that.
But but if they were gonna finish bottom 10, wouldn't you rather they finish bottom 5? You know what I'm saying?
I think I think ultimately that's the whole 10th to 5th. That's just a conversation for like next spring if we get there.
And I'll also say like I've obviously been so Bruins focused today. I haven't gone through what every other team has done, so this is like just ballparking it. I don't have everyone's roster in front of me breaking it down.
Yeah, I did go through daily face-offs line combinations today, and for every team, and I think San Jose, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle. That's 4. There was somebody else, Pittsburgh. I think those 5 teams right now, I think Boston's better than on paper. After that, it's Boston, it's Nashville, but even Nashville, like they underperformed last year, but on paper they're still not that bad. I mean, Buffalo. So I do think that right now on paper, I think the Bruins are between 6 and 10 across the league. So I do think that's the reality.
And that's what like my brain was clearly, and I'm sure this isn't just me, this is just thoughts that happened in people's minds throughout the day. And when we saw what happened at the end of in March of this season, we saw that if you're not going to make the playoffs, there might be a concerted effort to try and get a higher draft pick. And so we're already talking about that. Like it's clearly premature, but at the same time, we're not talking about it. We could have been sitting here today talking about a team that, hey, this is a wild card team, but I just don't feel like that's where we are right now. And my next question to you guys is, does it make you rethink this past trade deadline at all? And if you want me to qualify that, I can. So like, I guess what I mean is seeing how few guys were available to fill top or even middle 6 roles. that were, you think could have made a difference, would you have done a more conservative sell? Or are you happy with
No.
you don't have Charlie Coyle, that's fine. Like, you
No,
don't need
because
that guy as a middle
This is the
six.
plan. This was the
I was
plan.
gonna say, you know who you don't have if you do a more conservative sell? You don't have James Hagens.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so that's what it comes down to. So
It's the only way to get centers of that caliber. Like, you gotta suck. You gotta be bad enough.
And I will add, get a little bit lucky that somebody like that falls to you, because I have seen people commenting like, and this isn't, I don't think this is what a majority of people think, but like listening to Felger's takes and listening to some of Talk Radio's takes, and the clear misunderstanding of who he is and who he was last season has been driving me crazy. Because, and I know you guys are seeing it firsthand, Scott, you and some of the other reporters, just how elite his skating is, and just how elite of a player he already is for his age and could be as he develops even further. People,
Yeah, but he plays at BC, so they shouldn't have drafted him.
People don't get it. I swear, people don't understand that the reason why some of these guys went ahead of him is because they were playing against lesser talent. And he was playing against men. He was playing against guys that were older. He was playing against better players. He was playing with guys that outshone him because they were this NHL ready product. Like, there's so many layers to it, and people just want to generalize it.
Right. I was going to say, but that's the thing. Watching video or going to games and scouting a player, that's work. Talking to people who know him and have coached him, that's work. You know what's really fucking easy is just going on radio and saying, oh, they're just lazy because he went to BC, so they only know him because of that, and that's why they drafted him. Like, that requires no work. That is a take that Felger has had for 10 years. It requires zero research, zero homework. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to look at anything. You don't have to watch any video. You just take that to air, rant for 15 minutes, fire people up, and go home. Like,
and then
that's all it is. It's just lazy. It's just easy.
It's not only is it lazy, it's completely inaccurate. It's a problem to me in terms of like people go to these outlets for information, and I know that they also understand this is opinion and this is whatever, but this is a kid that is 18 years old. He hasn't even played a game for the Bruins yet, and you're coming in and you're throwing out this, oh, he underperformed, and you're trying to almost undermine who he could be, because you are hearing, oh, he didn't go number one when he was supposed to. Oh, he must be there. There must be a serious reason why. It's like, no, we went through some of this the other day. Some kids had better finishes to the season. They were playing against, lesser talent, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion. Some teams thought that other guys, they had a better fit because they were lacking size, or they were lacking whatever it may be. Maybe some teams needed a winger, some teams needed guys that were bigger, had different skill sets. It shouldn't negatively reflect on him that he ended up here. People should know that the Bruins got really lucky. I think that was maybe the happiest I've seen Don Sweeney even though it was at midnight, that press conference. They know they got a steal, and I'm convinced they did. And people who haven't seen them they're not qualified to give an opinion, to be honest. Like, that's just how I feel about it.
Well, I understand your frustration, Bridget, and I share it, because you have a kid who worked his whole life.
This is a kid, and I'm not even trying to cut you off, Brian, but like, I've seen him probably more than everyone else who went on the radio on either of the main two stations has ever seen this kid play. They probably never seen him play one time, and I've seen him play God knows how many times this year, because I cover Hockey East, and I have to watch the highlights for my show. I have to physically be at the games. Like, I seen him play a majority of his season, and then to hear what other people are saying is so off base, drives me crazy.
Clearly, and it's good to see this fired up. I mean, I agree with you. I think for James Hagens, you've worked your whole life to get drafted. You're excited to go to the Bruins, and and your name is being slandered essentially over the public airwaves. That said, that is what many talking heads do in radio, and it's entertainment for them, and they're doing what they've always done. And anybody who cares to know anything about anything understands everything that you're saying, Bridget. And at the same time,
they're the same people who found reasons every Monday morning or every Monday afternoon to come on and complain about Tom Brady for 15 years.
Yeah. Well,
the greatest team sport athlete of all of our lifetimes. And they would bitch about him. So, come on.
There are many people.
I know, but I just wanted to take a moment to say it because I don't know if our fans follow what I do with Hockey East. I don't know if they think of my credibility in terms of this realm, but because so few people are qualified to actually talk about him, I wanted to put out there how I feel about him because I have seen him so much and I am in that realm. And I do want people who are listening to us to know that those other things that they're probably listening to are not accurate.
For sure. And that goes for some of the people at EEI too, on our own airwaves. They can be that way.
Yeah,
and there are people out there that when they're in a certain job position, their job is to, farm for engagement and get reactions out of people. And the Bruins could win the Stanley Cup, and the next morning the headline will be, did the Bruins win the cup or did the other team lose it? Right? That's what kind of we're dealing with, right? So James Hagens is a surefire center prospect, and a lot of teams that drafted in front of the Bruins already have their number one center that they drafted recently or is still in their prime. And also, the Bruins didn't have the greatest luck with the ping pong balls dropping a couple of spots, so a little bit of karma there. But
by the way, quickly, just on the topic of sports radio, if they're listening to this before then, I'll be on with Jones and Mago Wednesday. Today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, so Wednesday at noon. Days running together a bit, but
love it.
Keeps on vacation, so it's Jones
you know what? I hope that you feed good information because you know what's really hard, and more than the people who are on there regularly. That's not even a knock on them.
Yeah, but
they haven't had the ability to follow it like we do.
It's unfortunate. Well, unfortunate for the Bruins. I guess I don't really care either way, but they actually had some goodwill building with the Hagens pick and the Geeky contract, and now it's gone. Which, by the way, I'll also note, saw a bunch of emails coming to the Skate Podcast email today throughout the day after Sweeney spoke. Have not had the chance to read through them all yet, but I appreciate everyone who sent them in. I'm sure we'll do a mailbag at some point in the next week or week and a half, but know that I did see them. We're trying to get this up as quickly as possible, so we're not going to be doing a mailbag today.
All right, so where do we want to go from here? I think we've kind of covered a lot of our initial feedback from the day, right? It's we know that the Bruins were lacking a top six winger, at least. We know that they were lacking, in my opinion, in the opinion of many, a right-handed shot defenseman that is an upgrade over Henry Jokiharju. I think that right now it's the Bruins clearly aren't in a mode to have optimal players at each position because Victor Arvidsson's not a second line right winger. So this is what they're doing. I think that they are. I think they're trying to not force what is their natural progression right now. I think that last year they had to pay the Pied Piper for never adequately being able to, whether it was their fault or not, replace Bergeron and Krejci internally. They had underperformances from certain players, and it all snowballed. It all came back to bite them in the ass. And when you finish fifth last in the NHL, whether it's due to underperformances and a couple of key injuries or not, and selling at the deadline or not, you're a ways away. And I just think the Bruins looked at it, and I think it would have been nice for them if they could grab that top six talent. It clearly wasn't there. So I think they're saying, all right, well, what else can we try to do right now? And it's try to get guys that will be hard to play against. And Scott, I know you said last year the Bruins didn't finish where they finished because of a lack of heart or compete. And I do agree with that. But I do think that their structure bottomed out. It completely fell apart. Their special teams sucked so bad. Their 5-on-5 play wasn't great. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So I just think that heart and compete just wasn't enough. But if you can hit the ground running in a proper fashion this year, it could be a little bit better for them in that department. Like, it could be more effective.
And again, the Swayman of it all. Like, you just can't avoid it. Like, he wasn't good last year. And if he's really good this year, then you're automatically going to take a pretty significant step forward. Like, it's oversimplistic to like only talk about the goalie, and obviously we haven't. We've been talking about everything else, but like, it's undersimplifying to not talk about the goalie. Like, it can make such a huge difference, and the Bruins need it to. Like, Jeremy Swayman has to be so much better than he was last year. And if he is, then this roster, even with its deficiencies, could be knocking on the door of a playoff spot. They could be in it, in February, March. Like, I don't think they're going to be like all in buying, but like maybe they're looking to add some kind of piece. Maybe it's someone with term. Like, maybe it's something that gives them like a little bit of hope to try to make a final push down the stretch instead of just folding it up and going home like they did this year. So yeah, like that's a huge part of this too.
Like, they could be in the hunt next year somehow for a wild card spot if all things go well. Their goaltending is strong. Their special teams vastly improves. Certain players play to their capabilities or even exceed. They can be in the hunt next year if all things go well, like we talked about.
Can I add a condition?
And then BC's season ends, and maybe James Hagens is a little boost for a little run towards the postseason.
I'm thinking it could be a big boost. I'm thinking it with this lineup, like big boost. And I had even brought it up last podcast. Does this, and I'll bring it up again, like, does this lineup call for him to come in earlier? Scott and I both think no, but like, it begs the question because there's a need that hasn't been addressed. But I'll add this condition into the what ifs. What does it mean for Marco Sturm? Like, what is Marco Sturm's impact? Because obviously there's been a coaching change too. So what is he bring? What can he change? Is he going to be someone who's able to develop the younger guys? Because honestly, when we talk about maybe this year doesn't go towards the playoffs, then I start thinking about, is this year going to be a good year for some of the younger guys to develop? Are they going to get their chances? Is he going to be able to help Fraser Mitten, Matt Patra, Fabian Lysell, Will Zellers, whoever may end up in this lineup? What does Marco Sturm, first of all, improve or be able to accomplish, and how does that affect the season?
Yeah, it's a good topic and a good question, because I think there's stuff that is very fair to expect out of him as the new coach. Getting back to defensive structure, that is fair. You don't need the most talented team in the world to have structure. Improving the special teams, 100% fair. Him and bringing in Steve Spott, like, that's totally fair. They should be able to be better on special teams. What I don't want to happen is I don't want management to have unrealistic expectations, because I think there are things that if they expect it out of him, I think it'd be unfair. And I will use Don Sweeney's exact words from his press conference Tuesday afternoon, where he used a phrase that he has used too many times before. We need to tease more offense out of the group. This is like one of his go-to phrases, and they can't do it. Like, ultimately, offensive talent is offensive talent, and more likely than not, you are going to score at whatever your talent level is. Like, can you get a little more offense, a little more out of the sum of the part, like all that stuff? Like, yeah, you can get a little more out. But ultimately, if
he's more what?
Offense. like
Seasonal
ultimately
production,
you
maybe.
can get a little more out, but you cannot take this roster and be a top 10 offense in the NHL. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I just hope like they're not expecting Marco Sturm to perform miracles offensively.
I don't think so.
Because that would be very unfair.
I don't think so. I mean, Sweeney mentioned tonight, and Scott, I think you may have said this or somebody said it before, when you bring Marco Sturm in as the head coach, that they're going to try to mirror the Los Angeles Kings recipe for success, which is defense first and score enough to maybe make the playoffs. Certainly right now when they don't have a surplus of offensive talent.
Sweeney referenced the Kings again tonight in his press
That's what-
conference. He referenced the
Yeah.
Kings and Wild again.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. So like he said that as recent as tonight after the transactions that they had. So I think that I don't think they're delusional, Scott, in the sense of they're gonna have a top 10 offense. I think they're looking at their roster and saying best case scenario, we have a character year where defensive foundation, heart and determination, and some opportunistic scoring gets us to taste some playoff hockey again and build towards something with, James Hagens on the way. And I'm sure they'll have, if they keep they have 2 draft picks next year in the first round, but so if they keep both of those, it's going to be a hell of a draft, especially if their own pick is in the top half of the draft, or at least, whatever. So I don't think they're delusional when it comes to how good this team will be offensively. I think they're going to scrap for it. What I will say though is there are teams, there are rosters where on paper you look at it and you want to puke. And there's parts of this roster right now that does that for me. But sometimes those rosters end up overachieving. And there's other rosters on the other side of the aisle where you look at it and you say, oh, that's the Final Four team, and they missed the playoffs. So
Nashville last year.
That's a great, but there's other examples too. The
Boston Bruins last year.
I know we're talking about, or even look at the Bruins 2 years ago, right? You entered the year without Bergeron and Krejci, Coyle and Zach are your number 1 and number 2 center. Yeah, you still have some good pieces, but that's not and they end up having 60-point seasons and you get to the playoffs. But I'm just saying, I know we're reacting to the roster on paper right now. We can only do so much in the summer. I'm leaving the opportunity and the possibility for this roster to overachieve. There's definitely that's real. We could get into the season next year, and they could be a hard team to play against. They could be entertaining. They could be very physical. They could be hard on the forecheck, a very intense team, and they could play well. And maybe they crack a wild card spot at most. But I'm just saying I'm not writing them off entirely as far as like, can they take a step forward in general next year? But they have some work to do, and there's no doubt about that.
I was going to say, like, once the season starts, we're going to be talking about how they can do better at different things. We're going to be talking about how they can try to make a push. We're going to be talking about, all of those things that are important for them to win. Right now, we have a little bit of time to kind of take a step back, look bigger picture, look at what they just did, and set some realistic or expectations based on today. And I think that's kind of what we've been doing. And time is running low a little bit. Scott, I did want to ask you if you had any takeaways from any of the conversations during development camp day 2, any of the things you've seen on the ice from development camp day 2, just to finish us out.
Just a couple quick ones. So I went down, I was along the glass when the forward group started today, and James Hagens was right in front of me, and they're doing like edge work, skating drills. And I posted this on Twitter because Mark Diver tweeted out like how noticeable Hagens' skating ability is just compared to everyone else out there. Being right up against the glass, one thing that like you almost had to laugh at was, so they do these drills and they're going either like over sticks or around sticks, and it's a lot of like tight cuts and stuff. And Hagens' cuts are all really tight, and like the snow buildup is all just like this very neat circle around it. And then like you look at like other guys and it's like there's snow all over the place, and like it's like they're going wider, they're running into the stick sometimes. And like I know, like, when I describe it that way, people are like, wait, can these guys not skate? No, that they're tough drills. Like, they're made to be tough. So yes, you see a lot of guys hit the stick or whatever. But it was just noticeable, like, that Hagens is like, man, this is just like perfect. Like it's just like on a string that just goes like perfect every time. And then a couple other, so just in the locker room, I haven't even really gotten to write any of this or tweet about it yet, but Andre Gasso talking about both Hagens and Letourneau was good. But especially Hagens, like, just talking about how hard of a worker he is, and kind of how he saw him grow last year. You can tell, like his face was just like lighting up talking about him. And that's obviously an upperclassman at BC. So I thought that was pretty cool to hear. And then I also talked to Christopher Morello today, Bruins prospect who's heading to BU this year. And it was funny to get his perspective as like the only BU guy in camp with all these BC guys around. Because he was like, I haven't really gotten to meet too many of my new BU teammates yet, because he'll be on campus in August. And I was like, but I take it you've met some of your rivals. And he was like, yeah, there's so many BC guys here.
Did we mention about Dean Letourneau's hand last episode, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't remember if we did, but yeah, I'd heard that during the season, but I don't know if it ever really got out there. But yeah, he did have a broken hand during the first part of the season and really didn't have it like fully fixed until the Christmas break.
And I will say, like, we had talked about it at the time, the difference between his first half and second half. And once again, as someone who watched him in the first half firsthand and the second half, he certainly looked better. He looked more confident, more comfortable. He was getting more ice time. I'm sure that all was correlated with trying to deal with that injury.
Yeah, he still didn't score. So
no, he still didn't score. We thought, the Dean pot was going to be when he did it, but no. But he looked like he was right there, though. You agree with me? He looked like he was doing the right things to score at the end of the season.
He looked better. I don't want to overblow because I thought he still had some tough games down the stretch. Like, there were still times I watched him and was like, man, there's just got to be more there.
Can I just say real quick? Scott talks about Hagens skating at development camp. I've been there as well, and I echo what Scott says. I'll also say that Dean's skating is not the greatest out there compared to his peers.
Dean is like, what is he?
I know, but
he's
no, I no, believe me, I get it. I'm just stating the facts. Like, I know he's tall. I know it's tough for a taller player, but that's part of it, right? So, especially with a lot of their edge works and their skating drills and their figure skating drills, and it's been tough for him out there. Tough sledding.
Also, I said this last year during development camp, and it's still true. He is better with the puck on his stick. Like, he's more coordinated with the puck on his stick than when it's not. And like, I don't know how to explain that, but it's like absolutely true.
I know exactly what you mean, Scott. Yeah, because the first day of development camp, the first half hour, they were doing like just motor skill stuff, right? And then they finally and then they threw out some pucks and he started stick handling. I'm like, oh, now he kind of looks like an NHL draft pick. So
because his hands are really good, so like I think once you get the stick and the pucks going, like you notice that more than the footwork. Where when it's all footwork drills, it's like that's all you're looking at.
I want to ask you guys a quick question, if you don't mind, because James Hagens very recently posted on Instagram a picture of him with the Bruins jersey saying, "Thank you to the NHL Bruins for making my dream come true. I'll give my heart and soul to Boston, to God, my family, and the many people who've helped get me here. I'm forever grateful." And I think it was like a combined post with the Bruins. That's how Instagram can do it sometimes. But it's Hagens' post, and I think it's very recent. Now, I don't read that as him not going back to BC next year. Okay, I read that as thanking the Bruins organization for making his dream come true of being an NHL draft pick. But I'll just ask you guys, if you had to put a percentage on it, what percentage would you say that Hagens goes back to BC for a sophomore year?
The percentage went down for me today. I'll tell you that. But I still think I was at like 90% chance he goes back. Now maybe I'm at like 75, 80. It's still higher. I still believe he will go back.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've maybe gone from like 90 to 85. Like I would still be surprised if he doesn't go back. Again, I'm kind of hoping like maybe we get that decision by the end of the week. It feels like that would be a sort of natural time to make it, like get through all this week and then sort of when they have their final conversations with the team before they go off their own ways. Like I would think you'd want to know where it's going for both sides.
What would it take? Because when Don Sweeney, I asked him this right after the draft, and he said it's still up in the air, though he did say we don't want to rush anyone, which if you read into it, I do think he wants to send him back to BC, and that would be the best for his development. But obviously part of the stipulation is this week and what he shows. Like, what would he have to do? Development camp is not training camp. It's not preseason. It's different. Like, they don't necessarily prioritize trying to find out things about guys. Like they're trying to find out they're trying to check their strength. They're trying to, like, what milestones, what would he have to do in order to say, for Don Sweeney and management to say, oh wow, what he just did over the past few days in these drills or in these contexts makes me change my mind that he should be on our team right now.
I mean, honestly, I don't think there is anything. Like,
me neither. I don't.
Yeah, like I think they probably already had their mind made up, and if they don't want to have that final conversation with them until later this week, like that's fine. Like they don't need to. I would be surprised if there was anything you could do in development camp that would change their mind, because you're right, it's not training camp. Like this isn't where you win a roster spot.
Bridget asked you, Scott, I think last episode, if not signing a few players during free agency, if they missed out on some guys, would change the trajectory of Hagens, and your response was no, they're not gonna allow missing out on Besser to change their mind if they're sending Hagens to BC regardless. But what if they already knew heading into free agency that they weren't going to be in on guys, and this was part of their plan? Like it's not like that. It's not that they missed out on Messer. It's that they knew they weren't going to get those guys, and that they were planning. Let's say that this, to your point, they weren't waiting for development camp results to tell them. They've already known that there's a good chance he was going to go to training camp and win a job, and maybe that's why they did have a Moneyball-esque day in free agency.
I mean, I guess it's possible, but I will just say I really hope that's not the plan. Like I genuinely think he would benefit greatly from another season at BC, and I really would worry about like what it might do if you throw him into the NHL right now and he struggles and he's not putting up points and he's getting crushed and it goes poorly, and now fans start turning on him because they're impatient. Like you're right. Like that could, if they thought he's part of the plan this year, then that could help explain things. But I just hope that's not the case.
I want to make this comp because actually Evan Marinovsky, one of our colleagues, made this comp earlier. He's another UMass person, and we have a rivalry between.
Sorry, that's just instinct. That's just
it's a him thing. But we have a BU UMass rivalry, so that's where that comes from Scott. But Cale Makar went back to school for a sophomore season, and his development in that season, I think, was important for his NHL career. Was he ready after his freshman season to go to the NHL? Yeah, I think he could have done it. He's Cale Makar. But I do think that it benefited him in ways that you can't see, you can't know, but his development there and going to the national title game, which, by the way, BC could do. Sorry, Scott. BC could do that. They could go to they are always the way they've been over the past few seasons.
They could absolutely lose to BU in the national title game. Absolutely.
Technically not impossible, but I'm trying to make a serious point. His experience going through at this level, being being the number one guy on the team, being the number one guy on the power play, leading a playoff push, going to a national title game potentially. That all could be instrumental in his development. And so you miss out on that when you skip out on that sophomore season, because now we really do think it's his time to shine. Leonard and Perreault are gone. And I think it'd be good to see how he expands into that role. And asking him to do that could build his confidence and make him a better NHL player.
I think that Hagen's going to BC next year with the combination of helping his development, being the guy, along with where the Bruins are at right now, where they're clearly not a team that needs that's the one player away, right? Like, again, because Hagens can play his sophomore year and join the Bruins later in the season once college ends. So if it were up to me, I would send him to BC for his sophomore year. Now, the only thing I'll say is now Hagens doesn't appear to be the type of individual to play this card. I just read his Instagram post and how he's super thankful to be, with Boston and all those things. And by all accounts, he's a great kid, comes from a great family. What is a reality in today's NHL is teams having to be wary of high caliber prospects that want to play in the NHL now, and teams say not so fast, and then the players turning around and saying, well, I want to play, and so if it's not here, no, that's not the case with Hagens at all. I'm just saying it's something that if the player wants to play in the NHL and the team says we want you to go to college, and I can already see Scott's response. Scott's response is going to be, the player's not going to dictate what the team's going to do. Like, you're going to do what we tell you to do. And I'm with you. I'm just saying it's something that
I know
NHL
who
teams
you're
are mindful. Well, there's multiple. Isaac Howard, Cutter Gauthier. There's many. Like, there's many examples.
And that should not
Marco McGroarty,
yeah, it happens.
I don't like that. If that's the guy that you got, then that's a problem already.
And it's not. Like, that's not who Hagens
is.
It's not. I'm just saying it's something that NHL teams have to be mindful of is all. It's just the world that they live in now with these kids and these higher prospects. It's just the reality.
I hate it. And you just have to hope and assume that the guy that you got is going to be willing to be a team player, which it sounds to me like he is.
He is.
I have no reason to think he wouldn't just kind of follow along and I think he wants to go back to BC. I know he wants to play in the NHL, but if the decision's made for him to go back to BC, I do think he feels like there's something for him to prove there. And that he could look at that season as this, hey, you guys that passed on me, look at what you passed on, kind of a year for him. And so I do think that he sees value in that too.
Yeah, and I also liked when he was asked a question like that, and I forget if it was his Zoom after the draft or if it was in the room this week, but he was asked something like, like if you do go back to BC, like what do you want to prove? Like, what do you want to accomplish there this year? And it was just real simple. He was like, win a national championship. Like nothing about himself, nothing about proving people wrong. Is just win a national title. And I will also say, just another quick observation from camp about Hagens. Talking to him in the room this week and talking to him like after the draft, he just sounds like so genuinely like happy and excited and like ready to go. Whereas talking to him a couple times before the draft, like I almost felt bad for him because it was like he had to defend the season he had. And like I understand why, because like he's hearing all the same things that we did, that everyone's saying. But it was like he should be talking about like how excited he is to, be getting drafted in a couple of weeks. And instead it was like, well, I think I actually had like a really good season, and like here's why, and here's the things I think I did really well. And it's like it was just like it was a little awkward, and like now it feels like that like I need to sell myself thing is like it's still there, like there's clearly a chip on his shoulder, but I just think like he seems happier, like weight off his shoulders, and just like excited to be there.
You turning into a BC fan, Scott? Is that what I'm hearing?
Never.
No, you sure?
Yeah,
Hey,
I mean, like these kids are all good kids. I'm really gonna hate rooting against them this year. But
is Iserman and
You
Cole
know,
Hudson going back to BU?
Iserman, I think he's
what
going
was
back.
that?
Iserman and Hudson, they go
Yeah,
back to BU?
I'm pretty sure he is. I don't know if it's like 100% finalized, but
What about Hudson? Yes, him too.
yeah.
Cool.
It'll be a good battle of Comm this year.
Yeah.
Well,
Bridget,
it has been for a few years. So
Bridget, I know you got to get going. So, do you have any final thoughts?
I think that there's still many thoughts left over, but we have plenty of time to talk about them. So
That we do. That we do. All right. Well, if you're listening up there and you're confused, so are we. So we're all on the same page. We'll see what happens.
We even talk about Sean Corrali coming back. Really, besides like listing it off, like there's so many more things to get into, but we will.
I mean, good news. They're only going to lose 2-1 this year instead of 5-1.
Yep. The individual players they brought in, I don't dislike the players. I just there was just an abundance.
Yeah, I mean, like very last thing, like we didn't even talk about, but like I like Mikey Asamon as a fourth liner. Like I like the way he plays. He's like a complete pain in the ass. He's just like he's physical. He's constantly under guys' skin. Like when I put together my lines, I was like, I really like this fourth. I think I ended up with like Asamont, Corrali, Kastelik as the fourth line. I had Janot on the third, which I don't like, but I'm like, that's a good looking fourth line. It's just
Where's
the whole
Kuzi?
middle. It's just the whole middle six. I had Kuzi on the third line.
Oh, so who's the odd man out then? Minton? Patra?
Yeah, I had Minton as an odd man out. Like maybe he trends towards starting the season in Providence, but I posted on weei.com, so if people want to check out the whole thing, they can.
All right.
Scott's got a lot of stuff on there if you want to read through it. There's a lot of stuff too that like because we didn't have a whole lot of time. Like there's stuff he covered that we didn't cover, so I would definitely recommend reading that.
I spent 9 hours at Warrior today. That is way too long to spend at that place.
Yes.
Is this the last time we'll be speaking? I mean, I know Friday's the 4th. We do sometimes drop episodes on Fridays, but 4th of July, I don't know if do we want to reconvene or maybe our listeners can look forward to us next week?
Yeah, we can probably aim for next week, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody listening, have a happy and safe 4th of July weekend. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.